Hi there, TJ. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for speaking to me, and happy reboot publication day. I mean, it must be crazy for you to. I mean, it's like, was it 2019 when it first came out originally?
It
So,
was, yes.
I mean, that must have been a buzz that it or took off on kind of BookTok and all those kind of things. But to now to come out with two like big publishers must be like an even bigger buzz. I'm quite curious. How did that transition from kind of indie publishing to these two? How did that come about? Because I'm sure a lot of writers who were written for indie publication were really curious about how they could maybe get the same kind of deal sorted out.
Oh, I wish I knew and had advice. I have two other books, and I wish I could do it with those too to get that
Sure.
sort of just Intercepts just connected with people, and that's all it was. And I got very fortunate, and it just seemed to connect with the right people, and they talked about it, and they told others, and it was truly a grassroots thing.
Uh-huh.
And again, like if I could replicate it, I would have.
Sure.
And it just found its way onto Book Talk and to horror fans, and the word spread, and it just sort of maintained its momentum for all those years. I mean, it's 7 years. That's
Yeah.
an eternity in particularly in self-publishing world. And yeah, and then an agent at Janko Nesbitt, the wonderful Emily Young, reached out randomly. She was like, I
Yeah.
found your book. What is happening with it?
Yeah.
I think there's a market for this. I think people would, I think publishers and larger audiences would love to see it. And it just was a whirlwind from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I think that was your agent was she's a British agent now that so she reached from right over the other side of the world. So
Yep.
I mean that alone must have kind of helped you to realize that it's not only could prove popular but also universally around the world. No.
It's connected with people in ways that I never expected it to, or never even hoped that it would in this way. It is very much it is like a father-daughter story at its heart.
Yeah.
It's set in this U.S. government torture facility that is doing these horrible things to people so they gain psychic abilities for so we can watch all of our enemies from afar. But at its heart, it has always been this story about the supervisor of that facility, this sort of the guy who goes about the job and sort of turns a blind eye and compartmentalizes the things he's doing. And at its core, he's a guy who has always chosen work over family. And now those inmates at the facility have found his daughter and have intercepted her mind and are giving her these horrible visions as a way to sort of get to him.
Yeah.
And it really is about a guy who's realizing that that choice of choosing work over family all those years has come back to haunt him, and now he has to do something about it. And I think that's always kind of connected with people, that it is about a father and his child and the family and that work-life balance.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, for me, whenever I speak to an author about, especially when it's kind of paranormal or supernatural, I always say that if it's not got some kind of anchoring, grounding element in there, I kind of lose it most of the time because I really need to kind of be able to, even though it's not real what's happening, these kind of the supernormal and the supernatural, I need something to kind of pull me in and want to believe it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a television writer by trade, and I've been in a lot of TV rooms with deep mythology, some that never made it to series, and it was just developmental stuff. But you the mythology can sink your ship
Yep.
real easily if you don't have a character heart for people to attach to. And you can just crush your story under the weight of mythology. And I've seen it happen to shows before where it's just this constant one-upping the magical supernatural thing that you came
Yeah.
up with, and it's just become so convoluted and so hard, and you lose the humanity in there somewhere. And I think
Yeah.
that's always important, especially in horror, because it's
Uh-huh.
such a visceral genre that if you lose the humanity in the writing of it, then there's nothing for people to attach to.
So I mean, so talking about the kind of it needs to have that humanity to ground the story, which actually came first, which was kind of the light bulb idea to write a father-daughter story, and then the horror came first, or did you kind of come up with this clinical version of a haunted house of sorts story, and then kind of decide that to ground it, we need these two main characters to kind of really make it believable and immersive.
In this case, it was the concept came first. It
Right.
was I read a lot of nonfiction, and I will just go down rabbit holes and follow my interests. And I'm someone who can just walk into a library and clear off a shelf. And so I went into this. I just got into this curiosity about the United States and the Cold War and the NSA, the CIA, and their MK Ultra experiments into the
Yep.
paranormal, the US's nuclear weapon arsenal, and just that the ways that large bureaucracy and safety systems crack under just their own size, and the convoluted nature of the US government and the things that we'll do for in the interests of national security, as they would say. And so I knew I wanted to do something in that world and just the lengths that the government will go to gather intercepts on our adversaries. And so then that became this, this torture facility was designed pretty much from there. And then, in a story, I think the low-hanging fruit version would be to focus on one of the inmates and their plan to escape, because I think that's
Right.
where the empathy would most naturally come from an audience. But the moral questions of the story, which I think is such an important thing the horror needs to ask its audiences, is the morality of humans, seemed
Hmm.
more interesting from the people in charge of the facility. And so then I knew I wanted to do something with the supervisor of that facility, the person who he's just blue collar, just goes about his job, is very good at his job, and uh, I wanted to explore him and what that kind of just following orders mentality is like. And then the way to sort of, I needed to find his weak points, which ended up being the exact same weak points that the antagonizing force to him found, these inmates found, which was his daughter. And from
Yeah.
there, it became the story of a fractured family, a man who chose work over family, and now he's divorced. He's an every other weekend dad, and it's haunting his daughter.
Uh-huh. I'm quite curious. I mean, when you were talking about about that, I know that you mentioned earlier that you wrote screenplays for television and things like that. But you kind of you lost. Not I'm not sure of interest, but you lost the kind of the your passion for writing. No, through when you were writing for TV and film. Um, would you say that that kind of in a way almost played into this story at all, especially with the protagonist's kind of realization of what he's been working for and how he kind of needs to make amends.
I will admit that a lot of there's a bureaucratic layer in Intercepts that is very both sinister and frustrating and almost buffoonish to the characters, because the bureaucracy is so impenetrable that they no one can do anything.
Hmm.
And that was very much Hollywood for me, that there is
Right.
this like higher level that is always meddling, and you don't actually get to see them and you don't get to see their decision making, but they will always give you notes and feedback, and it just sort of trickles down to you, the writer, and you don't and without any understanding of what you're actually doing. And so that level of man behind the curtain was very much part of
Right.
intercepts and what the characters are going through. And another thing that bureaucracy does is it diffuses responsibility for one's own actions. And
Uh-huh.
so in Hollywood, everyone is always sort of pointing when a bad movie or show gets made, everyone's kind of pointing in all directions. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was that note, that producer, that executive, that one, that director. Those were the ones who failed.
Yeah.
And people don't tend to look at themselves too much.
Uh-huh. At the same time, obviously, I mean, when you went with this story kind of began life as like a self-publishing thing. So was that also out of personal choice as well, so that no one else could meddle with the story that you wanted to get out there, I imagine?
Definitely. It
Hmm.
was so I had been trying to make it as a screenwriter for over 10 years. I came to Los Angeles right out of college. I got every job I could in the industry. I was a production assistant in post-production. I was working for Rob Reiner's crew,
Right.
who, by the way, Rob, sweetest man, just would take us all out to lunch. He told me to. He knew I wanted to be a writer. He told me to keep writing. It was his favorite part of the process. He was just a great guy. And so, but I was working 10 years just peddling, writing screenplays and trying to beg someone to read them. And I had reached this weird plateau that I feel a lot of aspiring screenwriters get to, where I was getting enough notice, I was meeting enough producers, and I had an agent. No one was paying me to write anything, and no one was buying anything that I had written, but they were all saying, "We love your writing, we love your voice. We can't buy it, but we have this idea that you would be perfect for. If you write us this screenplay for free, we will sell it
For
and then
free.
you'll make money, then you'll have a career." And I fell into that trap for
Right.
years. And there were times like it would be months because they wouldn't be my ideas. And
So
the
so it was literally like you were a ghostwriter. It would be like a ghostwriter. You wouldn't have your name on it.
I would have my name on it
You
if it
would.
sold.
Right, if
But it
so.
would really
Okay,
just
got you.
go out to a couple people. It's called in the industry, it's called script farming,
Right,
where you just get a bunch of amateur writers to write your ideas for free. And, maybe one will eventually get made into a movie, but they never do.
right,
And what I found was, I was essentially writing for these people. They were in essence my employers because their notes, their feedback, their ideas on the story, on the characters, on the themes, I had to incorporate those.
right.
And it was that whole process really it's hard writing. When you're writing for someone else's tastes and you
Right.
have to do what they say and even if you don't agree with it. And I really fell out of love with writing at that time.
Yeah.
And it
I
was
guess that was
just
kind of
this,
like following like kind of like a sat nav, a GPS, kind of this way, this way, this way, turn left, turn right there, no, and kind of
yeah,
didn't feel free to write what you wanted to add, no?
exactly.
Right.
And and so that's why I started writing the books because I wanted it, the these scripts might have my name on it, but they'd be read by the producer who had given me the idea and his assistant. Like it wouldn't go anywhere. And so I
Right.
wanted to reach an audience. And I started writing books on the side, and I very early decided from my very just a little research into the traditional publishing industry. It was like, oh, that is just it feels like the same machine that I'm trying to escape from
Right.
of gatekeepers. So I very early decided I just wanted to self-publish. I had a friend who did it. He demystified the process for me. I wanted to be in control of the marketing. Like if I
Hmm.
could just put a cost per click ad up and pay 30 cents to have an interested person who wanted to read something I wrote. That seemed
Yeah.
like a deal to me. And so, yeah, I just jumped into the self-publishing world to get it out there.
Hmm. I mean, at the same time, this book, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's not read it, even though it's been out for quite a while. For those who haven't read it yet, it's a fantastic high concepts book. But I guess they really, because of it was such a high concept, you must have really had to second guess how to gauge yourself to make sure that it wasn't, it didn't because you basically what it's difficult to not explain what goes on in the book, but to make sure that the things that are explained, kind of visions and hallucinations and these kind of things in the book, um, they could have literally been anything. So I'm quite curious what kind of a gauge, a barometer you use to make sure that they didn't go too far, not only for yourself as a writer, but for the audience to maybe even get annoyed. Not that I didn't get annoyed once, but I'm saying you did a great job. But how did you manage to kind of gauge yourself in that aspect of the writing?
Ooh, it's hard. It's always a question of when that dial is turned too much, and because it can get annoying
Hmm.
when you play with the audience expectation too much.
Yeah,
And I think the screenwriting background really helped on that
definitely, because it
because
really did feel cinematic. Yep, very much so.
and screenplays they're very focused. Uh, you can't the point of view, the POV from on a screenplay is always the camera. Whereas in a book, it's you have options of third person omniscient, third limited, first person, and but you can get lost in a character's mind too much, and
Hmm.
it's harder for the audience. And so just having that background of visualizing the scene and how it would play out in the audience's mind, uh, as though they're watching the movie as they read, I think really helped keep it focused, kept it from drifting into too far off the rails.
Yeah. Uh-huh. No, but it works also well because, especially when we were from the perspective of the daughter, and it just I was literally I was starting to get very paranoid myself because it really manages to keep the reader on their toes all the time because of the concept that is so clever. I don't want to give it away, but it's so clever that you just never know when something is going to appear out of nowhere. So that's why it works so. I think that's probably one of the main reasons as well. Beside the kind of the fact that it's a father-daughter story, the fact that you really just don't know when something is about to happen because it's kind of like I don't know. It reminded me a little bit of watching the Invisible Man movie, and I was scanning the kind of the whole screen was I was that I was kind of on tenterhooks the same way when I was reading this book.
Oh, thank you. Like I'm so glad that because I think that tension is so much fun to play with as a writer. And
Uh-huh.
I love it when I consume media too, like as an audience member, just to always be on edge. And what I love is, a lot of the book takes place in well lit corridors or sunny days at the park. A big house that has lots of windows.
Yeah.
There are security guys with guns hanging around. Like there's elements of you should feel safe,
Yep.
but you don't. And that was something I really wanted to play with.
No, yeah, no, that's fantastic. It really had me on edge. I mean, I finished it yesterday, and my head's been in a different place the last 24 hours, just kind of because of that kind of the paranoia that sets in from reading, especially reading Heather, from Riley's character. And I'm brilliant. Uh-huh. Also, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a very big homage to one specific franchise, the Aliens franchise. I'm quite curious why this and my name Gorman's even in there, my surname, which was great. It was great to see that. um, why specifically was that franchise? Did you think that was um, something that was related well to this story? Or did that just was it just something that kind of grew organically and it just became almost like maybe an in joke or something to call these people by specific
There's
names?
there's probably many answers to this question. So like for context, the inmates at the facility have been dehumanized and they've been assigned numbers, and then the people who work there decided they needed to give them names, and so they just named them after the Marines from Aliens. That came from the idea that like that is just one of my favorite movies. That's one of those movies any night. I'm in the mood to watch Aliens. I grew
Yeah.
up with that movie. It is deeply influential somewhere in me because it's one of those movies that has just always been around and one that I'm always in the mood to watch. But it also that movie does these great it has great themes about the corporatization of weaponry and that that bureaucracy that happens in that movie and how these people are fairly like the Marines and aliens are disposable in a lot of ways and they're just sent out there like that. And so there were things about that the corporate aspect that sort of called back to Intercepts. And there's, the Alien franchise has a lot of very drippy, grungy settings, but also these very sterile corporate settings as well. And they fuse the two together in this really cool way. And so that was, I'd like to pretend that was like the thematic reason I chose it, but really it's my favorite
Just
movie.
got love for the
And
film. Yeah.
there was a time when I was an assistant in post production and I was like tracking all these hard drives that we were storing and I just needed to name the hard drives and I just started naming them after the Marines and
All
aliens
right.
and that's and it
Brilliant.
felt like this is a very human thing to do, so let's have the characters in the book do it too.
Yeah, I mean, I said it was great, but also I kind of that was a little bit of humor in there. I felt like it was kind of humor. Was it difficult for you to inject humor in there because it is a very, very dark book, very bleak? So was it a hard decision for you to decide whether to keep comedy in there, and was it easy to blend a little bit of comedy in there when it was necessary?
I love humor, particularly in horror. I think it makes the scares pop. I think it makes the people relatable. I think as humans, we often respond to scary or horrific situations with humor. I think, and the caretakers at the facility, that is a very humorous thing for them to do to name these people after the colonial marines from Aliens. So I started writing with romantic comedies because I was in that Rob Reiner universe, the
That's
Castle
right. I read
Rock.
that you were doing you wanted to do kind of rom-coms at first or something like that. Is that right?
That's what I started with.
Yeah.
And that was just because I was with the Castle Rock people. I was working with the editor who cut When Harry Met Sally, and I was like, well, this is where my network is. I should follow this. I should write the romantic comedies. And so those are the scripts that I taught myself story structure from.
Mhm.
And ultimately, the rom-com formula never quite connected with me. My mind has
Right.
always drifted to darker places.
Right.
Even the romantic comedies that got me some amount of attention in the industry were set in the post-apocalypse
Right.
kind of stuff. So, but because of that, comedy is always it's a tool that I feel somewhat comfortable holding and
Yeah.
really enjoy when you can slip something comedic into a horror.
Oh, no, brilliant. Yeah, no, it works so well because I mean it's so bleak and so dark. So it was kind of almost like a jump, almost like another jump, kind of a jump surprise. All of a sudden, that there's like these little elements in there. I also want to speak. I mean, I mentioned that my name's in there, my surname's in there, but also it deals a lot with your surname. There's a lot of pain in this book. A lot of very, 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 very insufferable pain. I'm quite curious how you approached or maybe how you researched how to provide all the details of so much pain that they go through.
Ah, that's a good question. I am someone who is incredibly squeamish myself, and
Mhm.
I am someone who I do not like having routine blood draws.
Yeah.
I get squeamish and I can just visualize as they're filling up the little tubes on the syringe, just like, is it going to stop when they remove the needle? Am I just going to drain out right here? Like that just goes through my head. I'm very uncomfortable with blood, with pain, and I think it's that I just think about it all the time. I have a very active imagination with that regard. So, and whenever people tell stories of a painful event they had, that it really, really sticks with me. And I think all of that is just sort of accumulated throughout my life. And I would just close my eyes and imagine what would this experience actually feel like in the most horrific, darkest way possible, because it's just where my mind constantly is at. So I think that's
I'm guessing it
where
was
that all came
maybe
from.
a bit cathartic at the same time to kind of to feel it without actually feeling it. No, to imagine it but not actually feel it. No, okay, I mean, I guess that's kind of why a lot of people are drawn to horror as well because they like to experience things that they would never want to actually experience in real life. So kind of
It's
yeah,
I think horror itself is very therapeutic. I think it does scratch those itches that, for those who just have dark thoughts, and dark thoughts might just be like, oh, my blood draw is never going to stop and I'm just going to drain out. Like those kind of dark thoughts, it's a safe place to experience those because you can always then set it aside, take a walk.
yeah.
Uh, but and that's why I love horror. That's why I love consuming it. That's why I love creating it. Is it scratches those itches and then just keeps on scratching right below the skin.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, I mentioned that it's a really high concept, so it must have been kind of very, you must have been very kind of conscious and self-aware about what direction it was going and what direction you were taking your readers. Obviously, I don't want to give anything away, but I want to kind of talk a little bit about the end. I was ex I wasn't sure how it was going to go because it was just so open. I mean, like the sky really is the limit when it came to where you could have taken this story. So I'm quite curious if you maybe reverse engineered or you had a kind of rough idea where you wanted to go with the book, or did you come up with various different iterations before you decided on how you wanted to finish this book? Because it really could have gone anywhere.
I had a slight idea. I tend to be, in the writing world, there are the plotters and the pantsers, those who like to plot out their stories and those who like to write by the seat of their pants. I'm definitely a plotter.
Right.
A lot of that comes from the TV background
Yeah.
where that's part of the job. That you're contractually obligated to turn in an outline. And so I've always been very much a plotter, but a lot of people who don't are the pantsers. They tend to feel that plotting is inherently uncreative, that's
Yeah.
constraining. And for me personally, I've felt the opposite, that the plotting is immensely creative because you can take big swings in short amounts of
Right.
time. And that you can, and so I like to pants my way through the plotting, really. Like if I can just
Mhm.
bang out an outline and see, okay, what happens if this character dies here? What happens if this happens here? Like you can take those big swings and implement them in an afternoon and see if it hangs together, see if that is satisfying, if that's the story and the arc of the world and the characters that you're best building toward. And
Yeah.
so for the end of Intercepts, it really was this sort of trial and error through the outline stage of, well, where can we end? There were certain things I knew I wanted to hit, and but I didn't quite know how to get there necessarily, and I didn't quite
Right.
know how it would flow out from those moments. And so it's just a process of experimenting. Like,
Yeah.
what are the characters telling me to do? When are they resisting what I'm trying to do, and I need to back up and try something else?
Mhm. And so, talking that, how do you get a lot of when I'm speaking to a lot of authors, I like to know how they get to know their characters. Do you create kind of a background for them before you kind of sit down to write the actual story itself and you get to know them yourself, or do you get to know them as you're writing them in the book?
Uh, I try to get to know them beforehand, and then they always teach me something new.
Right.
And but there is a certain amount of you kind of know what sort of person would put themselves in this position, who would be in this story. And so you've narrowed down the type of person, the type of voice they would have, and the type of history and backstory they would have. And from there, I do just keep always adjusting and fine tuning to the point until I feel comfortable I don't pre-write the backstory, but I get to a point where it's like, I know their backstory. Oh yeah, this is who they were back when they were a kid. And it just sort of clicks into place
Falls into
eventually.
place now. Yeah.
And it really like that writing can be magic.
Yeah.
And it's really cool when you just suddenly I know this person. I know their voice. I know you can set them in front of doors A, B, and C, and you know exactly which one they're going to go for.
Uh-huh. Talking of that, also, I know that I think the UK version has got is it an extra chapter? Is that right?
It's a
Whereas I
bonus
think
short story.
it's a bonus short story. I thought, oh right, no, because on the US side it said a short story, and then the kind of the UK side, I don't know if it said something about it was an extra chapter. But it says actually a short story.
It's kind of it's a between chapters chapter.
So
There's a moment.
it's related to the book.
Yes, to the
It
book, to
is.
the
Okay.
characters. There's a moment in the book where an event is described from one character to another, and it's a very brief sort of description, but it's a brief description of this really horrific thing that happened. And for pacing reasons, I never included that part of the story because it felt
Hmm.
like it would slow things down right at the moment that things were speeding up, and so it never fit. But for this re-release, I finally wrote out that event, uh, and in all of its like gruesome, gory, fun detail, and
Uh-huh.
it's now included in this re-release at the very end. So it's not tucked in where it belongs chronologically,
Right.
but you'll understand why it's where
Once
it
you read
is.
it, yeah. Well, I can't wait to get. I ordered my copy the yesterday. I ordered my hardback copy, so I can't wait to get all that because it wasn't that extra short story or chapter wasn't in what I've read. So I can't wait to get my hands on that one. Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Also, I mean, the new release in the US, you've stuck with the same artwork that you originally had. Is that correct? Whereas in the UK, it's a completely different one, and I mean, they're both fantastic. Um, what was did you have much say in the artwork? Are you hands-on when it comes to the artwork? I imagine the original was your original idea, no, that first one.
I know the original was one I designed myself,
Right.
and it's always stuck well with audiences. And so when the Crown imprint of Penguin Random House decided to re-release it in the US, they were like, "Well, this is the familiar cover, and people have seen it online. If we're gonna get it into bookstores, and when they walk in, now they'll recognize it
Yeah.
instantly." And
Uh-huh.
then UK came up with this gorgeous cover design, a very like sci-fi thriller sort of look to it, which I think is fantastic. And then the German cover
Right.
is
Yeah, no, I was seeing here there's a few you've got quite a few different countries it's coming out. I saw I think the Dutch one, no, sorry, you mean that's the German one there behind you, know. I saw the Dutch one, which I think is the same as in the UK, I think.
yes, there's those are the three covered, and I think other countries have taken the German design. I think some countries have taken the
Uh-huh.
US design. So there's kind of three covers out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And the German one is, more twisted and gruesome and very body horror like. So it's great. I feel they're all the same book and they
Yep,
accentuate different sort of aspects of it.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And all three are great for people who like to collect the different the same as me. I like to collect my special editions. I can't wait to get hold of various copies of that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fantastic. But I also mentioned it's very, very cinematic. I would pay so much to see a movie of this. It would work so well as a movie. Has there been any talk of any interest of making this into a movie?
Yes, the book is optioned right now with Boulder Light Pictures, and they did Weapons and Barbarian and Companion, so they're just a wonderful home for
Mhm.
this type of project. We'll see what happens with it. I know just from my inside experience in Hollywood, things it's hard to get a movie made, no
Yep,
matter
it
what.
is.
It is just it is a process that falls apart at a moment's notice for any variety of reasons. So we'll see. Hopefully something materializes
No, no,
soon.
I mean, it could work really well. I mean, it would be like a sci-fi version of It Follows or something like that. I could just imagine it as a movie. So it would just be, it works so well. Yeah. So I mean, besides that, obviously you've got this book coming out now. Are you working on anything, or is there anything that you're going to be releasing very soon that you can tell us about?
Nothing I can talk about quite yet, but
Right.
I mean, it is a very exciting time in my career because, so the last book I wrote, self-published, came out in 2020, and I, the self-publishing, was going so well that I realized, oh, I don't need Hollywood anymore. I can
Right.
like make a living writing and self-publishing books. This is going to be, I can be a writer this way.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is with Hollywood, of course, is once I had that level of confidence in myself finally, and went in for that last open writing assignment pitch at a studio, things, I'd never gotten these jobs before, but when you have that little bit of walk away energy, that confidence, they hired me.
Yeah.
And so I was hired for a feature film that, again, never got made, but then they liked it so much, they bought another idea off pitch. And then I had a little bit of credibility. So I was getting in TV rooms, and I've been in five different TV writers' rooms now. So I've been busy since 2020 in this TV film world, but now with Intercepts being re-released from these major publishers, it's given me that excuse to pivot back to the books, which I have found that
Right.
I truly enjoy so much more. They're so much more freeing. They're so much more creative. They're more my voice. It's you're not always sweating about the budget when it comes to writing a book. You're not,
Yeah.
oh, we can't set this scene here because that
Yeah.
crowd would be too big. You can't go to hell. That's too much VFX. You can do
No,
anything you
exactly.
want. And so
Pen and
just,
paper. Yeah.
yep. It is, yeah, you're limited by your imagination. That is it. It
Yeah.
is, books are so incredible and they're so freeing. And so I'm very excited to get back to the books. I have another one that I'm working on right now.
Right.
It's a an exorcism type story, but it's gonna have
Right.
like just a new twist, a new way into it that I think people are gonna absolutely love. And hopefully that comes out next year.
Well, I can't wait because The Exorcist is one of my favorite books of all time. So I can't wait to see what twist you've given that genre. That'd be great. Listen, TJ, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of success with the re-release. I'm sure it's going to go down really well. And fingers crossed the movie project moves forward and we get to see that because I honestly it'll be a fantastic movie.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
No, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Have a great day. All right, take care of yourself then. Speak
Take care.
soon. Bye now.